せがれよ。なぜこの父の思いがわからぬのだ。忍びの掟を忘れたか。
掟は己で定める。そう決めました。我が主のように。
少しは成長しておるようだな。やろうか。狼よ。
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sekiro boss battle and strategy guide. In this particular episode we will be looking at the Great Shinobi Owl. And I know this may not be anything of a lore video, but before we talk about the strategies on how to beat the Great Owl, I would like to take note of his name. He's a Great Shinobi and Owl is his title, probably for something he's good at or something he does or something he's done. But it also alludes to the fact that there are other Great Shinobi of probably other titles. Quite interesting, but that's beyond the case. This is a grueling battle. Well, at least it was for me. I can't say much. And it tastes, not only does it taste, it tests your ability to assess your spacing in a fight, because this is the one time where you face an opponent with much greater range than you, but also great mobility. So in this case, all fair and fine, it's possible for you to deflect and take a great risk by moving in close and fighting the Great Owl in close quarters combat, but I don't actually how can I say this? I don't actually condone that. It's not a good strategy. Instead, I feel like if you stay outside of his range and let him whiff his attacks, you'll be able to get a big opening on him, allowing you to do some damage, because the damage output, the difference between the two of you is very great. It's easy to get comboed, it's easy to die, but one particular strategy that I found that worked for me during my first playthrough was running in circles in the outer rim of the stage. This forces him to go for his lunging attacks, which if he misses leaves him in a great recovery. This is a good position for you. And also, one thing I've noticed about running around in circles is that it makes him do the shuriken toss into jumping slash. That's the biggest opening you can get. So I feel like this is the best strategy so far that worked for me. Maybe there are other strategies, of course, that are more efficient, but this is something that is easier to understand and easier to exploit, because if you keep a certain distance, Owl only uses a set number of moves. The only thing you have to be careful of is the sword thrust, or should I say the sword slash attack that comes after a great forward step. That is very difficult to evade, especially when you're running. You need to be ready for it, you need to be able to deflect it, because it has follow-up attacks, and if you make a mistake you will die. You will die, that's guaranteed. So in this particular case, it's necessary to stay outside of his range. I opted to do this because it leads to guaranteed damage. Trying to deflect might not be the best solution, because if you get guard broken, you are immediately dead. That is a guarantee. The things you have to look out for besides his attacks and his great range is his ability to throw a certain poison gourd onto the ground. Not saying that it poisons you, but it stops your ability to regenerate. There have been similar abilities in previous Souls games and in Bloodborne, and this has the same effect. If you are doused by his god, your god will suffocate you in a sense, and you won't be able to heal. So all damage you take at that point is permanent until the effect wears off. So puts you in a real sticky situation, especially if you're down on gods, if you're down on life, and if you're down on resurrections. You do not want to be left unable to heal yourself. But besides that, it's a lot of patience. The first phase of the fight ends and there's an area of dialogue, but if you want to get a free hit in, you spam attacks as soon as you get your first death blow in, because at least you won't be guarding. In the second phase, it's more of the same, except now he has access to the Shinobi Firecracker prosthetic and a few other attacks. You have to be aware of this, because if you get stun locked by the owl, you will die. If he combos you, that's a guaranteed outcome. But one thing I do have to say is that the same tactic you used to beat him in the first round of the fight still applies in the second round. If you run outside of his range in circles, he is used, or should I say, he is forced to use a certain portion of his moveset. Of course, you've got time to prepare, time to see what you can do. This fight is more about health and damage output. No real need to buff, because most of the time you're running, so you might find that you waste a lot of your buffs. A key thing to keep in mind is that his jumping slash after the double shuriken toss is not homing, so you are able to run underneath it, you are able to run around it, and he will not change directions. And that's the guaranteed time for big damage. You get your run and slash and probably one more attack, and I'm sure there are some weapon arts you could potentially use that could be beneficial in terms of seeking damage in that great opening. Trust me, this game, I feel there are some heavily deceptive hitboxes on some of these attacks, but it's one thing that you do have to keep in mind when you're looking at swordplay, even in real life. The person with the longer reach is always at a greater advantage, and I feel like this fight is the embodiment of that. You pretty much have the same tool set. The strategy is roughly the same as to what you want to do to each other, but the fact that his sword is so long means that you can't play in his range. He'll hit you way before. If you look at previous Souls games, especially if you're 1-2 PvP a lot, if you're someone maybe on a short sword or long sword or something with relatively smaller range, daggers, things of the sort, when you come against, for example, spear users, halberd users, that long range, great deceptive range can mean that, you know, spell great trouble for you when it comes into evasion and, you know, trying to play within each other's range and deflections and, you know, all the likes. So that's the only real thing I can say about this fight, and I hope that the strategy works for you. Thanks for watching, and this is the Great Shinobi Owl boss fight in the Sekiro boss battle and strategy guide.